My son sent me a message that read, "Stop calling me. I am tired of you and all your demands." I read it 3 times before the words actually sank in. I did not cry. I did not call him back. I simply put my phone down on the kitchen counter and stared at it like it was some foreign object that had just appeared in my home. Before we proceed, thank you for watching Her Voice Narrative. Please subscribe. Tell us where you are watching from in the comment section. 2 months passed. 2 long months where my phone stayed silent. Then one Tuesday evening, his name flashed across my screen. I almost did not answer. But something made me pick up. "Mom," he said. His voice was shaky, almost desperate. "Mom, I need your help right now. Linda and I are about to lose our apartment. We need $3,000 by tomorrow or we are out on the street." I took a deep breath. The words came out calm and steady. "I'm sorry. I do not know who you are. I do not have a son." Then I hung up. My name is Margaret Chen. I am 61 years old and I live in a small town in Pennsylvania. For the past 35 years, being a mother was the only identity I ever needed. I worked as a hospital administrator, pulling long hours and extra shifts to make sure my son David had everything he needed after his father walked out on us when David was only 5 years old. I never remarried. Dating seemed pointless when I had David to focus on. Every dollar I earned went toward his future, his education, his comfort, his dreams. When he graduated from college, I cried tears of joy. When he got married to Linda 3 years ago, I thought my life was complete. I had done my job. I had raised a good man. But somewhere between his wedding day and that text message, something changed. Or maybe it had always been there and I was just too blind to see it. The first time David asked for money after his wedding, it seemed reasonable. They needed help with the security deposit on their apartment. $2,000. I sent it immediately. A mother helps her child get started in life, right? Then it was the car repair. Then it was Linda's emergency dental work. Then it was credit card debt that had somehow spiraled out of control. Each time, David would call with that urgent tone in his voice. Each time I would transfer the money without question. I kept a small notebook where I tracked every dollar. Not because I expected repayment, but because my administrative mind needed to see the numbers written down. Over 4 years, the amount climbed higher and higher. $48,000. Nearly $50,000 given to my son and his wife. But it was not just about the money. It was about the pattern I was too afraid to acknowledge. David would disappear for weeks at a time. No calls, no texts, no visits. Then suddenly he would resurface with another crisis. Another emergency. Another urgent need that only I could solve. I told myself he was busy. Young couples have demanding lives. He was building his career. He was focused on his marriage. These were normal things. Healthy things. I should be proud that he was independent. But late at night, alone in my house, I would wonder why independence looked so much like absence. The text message that changed everything came on a Sunday morning in March. I had been feeling ill for a few days. Nothing serious, I thought. Just a persistent headache and some dizziness. But that morning I woke up and could barely stand. The room spun around me like I was on some terrible carnival ride. I managed to get to my phone and called David. It rang 4 times before he answered. "What is it, Mom?" His voice was annoyed, like I had interrupted something important. "David, I think something is wrong. I feel really sick and I cannot seem to stand up properly. I might need to go to the hospital." There was a pause. I could hear Linda talking in the background. Then David sighed, actually sighed like I had just told him about some minor inconvenience. "Mom, it is Sunday. We have plans. Can you call an ambulance or something?" My heart felt like it stopped beating for a moment. An ambulance? He wanted me to call strangers instead of coming to help his own mother. "David, I am scared. I just need someone to drive me to the emergency room. Please." "Mom, seriously. I do not have time for this right now. You are always calling with some problem or some request. I am tired of it. I am tired of you constantly needing things from me." The words hit me like a physical blow. But before I could respond, before I could process what he had just said, he continued. "Stop calling me anymore. I am tired of you and your requests. Deal with your own problems for once. Then the line went dead. I sat on my bedroom floor, phone still pressed to my ear, listening to the silence. The dizziness was getting worse, but somehow that physical discomfort felt like nothing compared to the pain spreading through my chest. I did call an ambulance. I spent 6 hours in the emergency room where they ran tests and determined I had a severe inner ear infection that had thrown off my balance. They gave me medication and instructions to rest. They asked if someone could drive me home. No, I told the nurse. There is no one. She looked at me with such pity that I almost started crying right there in that sterile hospital room. When I got home that evening, I sat at my kitchen table and pulled out my notebook. All those numbers staring back at me. $48,000. 4 years of constant requests. And the one time I needed help, the one time I called him, I was told I was the problem. I opened my laptop and started going through old text messages and emails, reading through them with new eyes. Eyes that were finally willing to see the truth. Every conversation we had ended with him asking for something. Every visit was preceded by some financial crisis. Every holiday where he cancelled last minute, I would later find out he had gone to Linda's family instead. Her family, who apparently did not drain them the way I supposedly did. I found emails I had forgotten about. Times when I had asked if he wanted to meet for lunch and he had made excuses. Times when I had invited them over for dinner and gotten no response. Times when I had sent birthday gifts and never received acknowledgement. But mixed in between all of that were my transfers. Money sent within hours of him asking. Sometimes within minutes. I had trained him to see me as nothing more than a bank account with a phone number attached. The realization did not come with tears. Came with a strange, cold clarity. Like someone had finally turned on the lights in a dark room, and I could see exactly where I had been stumbling around for years. I made myself a cup of tea and sat down to write. Not to David, but to myself. A letter documenting everything. Every dollar. Every broken promise. Every time I had swallowed my hurt and told myself it was fine because that is what mothers do. When I finished writing, it was past midnight. My tea had gone cold. But something inside me had shifted. Something fundamental had broken and reformed into a different shape entirely. I did not call David the next day. Or the day after that. Or the week after that. I went to work. Came home. I read books. I watched television shows I had been meaning to catch up on for years. I started taking evening walks around my neighborhood. Something I had not done since David was a child. The silence was terrifying at first. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart would jump, thinking it was him calling to apologize. But it was never him. It was work emails. It was spam calls. It was the dentist reminding me about my upcoming appointment. David did not call. 3 weeks went by. Then 4. Then 5. I started to wonder if this was it. If our relationship had simply ended with that cruel dismissal on a Sunday morning. Part of me grieved for it. But another part of me felt lighter than I had in years. I started meeting up with old friends I had neglected. Susan from my book club, who I had been too busy to see because I was always waiting for David to need something. Robert from the hospital, who had asked me to coffee 3 times before I finally said yes. A whole world of people who actually seemed to enjoy my company without expecting anything in return. On week 6, I did something I had been putting off for years. I went to see a lawyer. Her name was Patricia Torres, and she specialized in estate planning and elder law. I sat in her office and told her everything. She listened without interrupting, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and looked at me with kind but serious eyes. Margaret, what you are describing is financial exploitation. It is more common than you think. Adult children who see their parents as resources rather than people. The good news is you have stopped the pattern. The harder part is protecting yourself moving forward. Protecting myself from my own son. The words sounded insane when I thought about them that way. Patricia walked me through everything. I needed to make sure David had no access to my bank accounts. I needed to update my will and power of attorney documents. I needed to document everything in case he tried to claim I owed him money or make accusations about my mental state. That last part chilled me. Would David really do something like that? Patricia looked at me seriously. Margaret, when you cut off someone who has been exploiting you, they rarely go quietly. They escalate. They get angry. They try to find new ways to access what they want. You need to be prepared for that. I spent the next week following her advice. I went to my bank and had David removed from all my accounts. I had added him as an emergency contact years ago, thinking it was the responsible thing to do. Now I was paying to have him taken off. The banker processing my request was a young woman named Jennifer. She did not ask questions, but I could see the understanding in her eyes. This was not the first time she had helped someone protect themselves from their own family. I updated all my legal documents. My new will left everything to charity. My power of attorney went to Susan from book club, someone who had proven over years of friendship that she could be trusted. When it was all done, I felt exhausted. But I also felt safe in a way I had not felt in years. Week 8 arrived. I had stopped counting the days, but somehow the number stuck in my mind. 8 weeks since David told me to stop calling. 8 weeks since I had heard his voice. I was making dinner when my phone rang. David's name flashed across the screen. My hand hovered over it. Some part of me, the mother part that had spent 35 years putting him first, wanted to answer immediately. Wanted to hear his voice and pretend everything was fine. But the rest of me, the part that had been reading and documenting and protecting myself, knew better. Answered. His voice sounded stressed. Urgent. Mom, I really need to talk to you. Hello, David. There was a pause. Like he had expected me to say something different. Something warmer. Mom, Linda and I are in serious trouble. We are 2 months behind on rent, and our landlord is filing eviction papers. We need $3,000 by tomorrow or we are going to be homeless. No apology for what he said 8 weeks ago. No asking how I was doing after I called him sick and scared. Just straight to the request. The words came out of my mouth calm and clear. I had not planned them. But somehow they felt like the only possible response. I'm sorry. I do not know who you are. I do not have a son. Hung up. My hands were steady. My breathing was normal. I felt no panic, no guilt, no desire to call him back and fix everything. Instead, I felt something I had not felt in years. The phone started ringing again within seconds. David calling back. I declined the call. He called again. I declined again. On the third call, I turned my phone off entirely and sat down at my kitchen table. What had I just done? I pulled out my notebook and looked at all those numbers again. $48,000. 4 years of constant requests. 8 weeks of silence except when he needed money. I had not cut off my son. He had cut me off the moment he decided I was only valuable when I was useful. I turned my phone back on an hour later. 23 missed calls. 15 text messages. I did not read them. Instead, I called Susan. I just told David I do not have a son anymore, I said when she answered. There was a pause. Then Susan said something I did not expect. It is about damn time. She came over that evening with a bottle of wine and a determination to make sure I did not backslide into old patterns. We sat at my kitchen table and she made me tell her everything from the beginning. When I finished, she shook her head. Margaret, I have watched you shrink yourself for years trying to be whatever David needed. Do you remember when you missed my daughter's wedding because David called with some emergency? I did remember. I had been so excited to go. But David had called saying Linda was in the hospital and he needed me to wire money for the medical bills immediately. I had spent that entire Saturday dealing with bank transfers instead of celebrating with my friend. Linda was fine the next day. It had been some minor thing. But I had missed the wedding. That was 3 years ago, Susan said quietly. And it was just one of many times you chose his crises over your own life. I am not judging you. I know you were trying to be a good mother. But Margaret, at some point, being a good mother also means teaching your child to handle their own problems. I started crying then. Not sad tears exactly. More like release. Years of tension and worry and constant vigilance finally breaking open. Susan stayed with me until late that night. When she left, she hugged me tight and whispered, "You are going to get through this. And you are going to be better for it." The text messages started coming in waves. I finally looked at them the next morning. Mom, this is not funny. Call me back. Mom, we are serious about the eviction. We need that money today. Why are you doing this? You are my mother. You are supposed to help me. Then from Linda, David's wife, a number I had saved but who rarely contacted me directly. Margaret, I do not know what is going on, but David is really stressed. We genuinely need help, and it is cruel of you to ignore us like this. We have always been there for you. Always been there for me. I read that line 3 times trying to find a single memory that supported it. When had they been there for me? When I had the flu last year and could barely get out of bed. When I had a cancer scare and needed someone to go with me to my biopsy. When I spent Christmas alone because they decided Linda's family needed them more. Linda's family needed them more. The messages kept coming throughout the day. Getting more desperate. More angry. You know what, fine. Be that way. Do not come crying to us when you are old and need help. This is unbelievable. I cannot believe you are doing this over one stupid comment I made when I was stressed. One stupid comment. 8 weeks ago when I was sick and scared and he told me to stop calling him. That was just one stupid comment. Then came the message that made my blood run cold. We know you have money. We know about your pension and your savings. You are just being selfish and bitter. If you do not help us, we will have no choice but to take legal action. You owe us for all the years we supported you emotionally. I took a screenshot of that message and sent it directly to Patricia. Her response came within minutes. Do not engage. Document everything. This is going exactly where I thought it might. We need to meet tomorrow. That night I barely slept. Not from guilt or sadness, but from anger. Pure, clean anger at the audacity of it all. The manipulation. The threats. The complete rewriting of history to make me the villain in a story where I had only ever tried to help. Patricia's office the next day felt like a sanctuary. She had printed out all the documentation I had sent her. Bank statements going back 5 years. Text messages. Emails. A clear pattern of financial exploitation. Margaret, she said, spreading the papers across her desk. This is actually helpful. If David tries to claim you owe him money or that you are mentally unfit to manage your finances, we have clear evidence of what was really happening. But I want you to be prepared. This might get worse before it gets better. How much worse? They might show up at your house. They might try to turn other family members against you. They might make accusations. People who are used to getting what they want do not handle rejection well. I thought about David as a child. Sweet, funny, affectionate. When had that child disappeared? Or had I been so busy enabling him that I never noticed he had grown into someone I did not recognize? Patricia must have seen something in my face because she reached across the desk and touched my hand gently. You did nothing wrong. You were a mother who loved her son. He is the one who chose to exploit that love. You are simply choosing to stop allowing it. Over the next few days, the messages evolved from desperate to angry to threatening. Linda sent a long text explaining that David had only maintained a relationship with me because she encouraged him to. That he had wanted to cut me off years ago, but she convinced him to keep trying. I read it twice, then took a screenshot. There it was in writing. The admission that their relationship with me had been transactional all along. Part of me wanted to respond. To defend myself. To explain. But Patricia had been clear. Do not engage. Every message you send gives them something to twist and use against you. So I said nothing. I documented everything and I said nothing. On day 10 after the phone call, they showed up at my house. I was in my kitchen making lunch when I heard the car pull into my driveway. Through the window, I saw David's beat-up sedan. Both of them got out. David looked awful. Unshaven, wearing dirty clothes, moving like he had not slept in days. Linda looked better, but her face was set in hard, angry lines. I had prepared for this. Susan was already at my house, sitting in my living room. We had discussed what to do if they showed up. I had the non-emergency police number ready on my phone. The doorbell rang. Then pounding on the door. Mom, open up. We need to talk. I went to the door but kept the chain lock on. I opened it just a crack. Hello, David. His eyes were wild. Desperate. Mom, please. Just let us in. We can talk about this like adults. We can talk right here. Linda pushed forward. Her voice had that fake sweet tone people use when they are trying to manipulate you. Margaret, please. This is ridiculous. We are family. Just let us inside so we can discuss this calmly. No. I said the word firmly. Simply. David's face turned red. His desperation morphed into anger in seconds. No. You are really going to stand there and refuse to let your own son into your house. You told me to stop calling you. You said you were tired of me and my requests. I am simply respecting your wishes. That was different. His voice rose. I was stressed. I did not mean it like that. How did you mean it then? He opened his mouth, closed it, had no answer. Linda's mask dropped completely. Her voice turned sharp and cold. You selfish old woman. We are about to be homeless, and you are sitting in your comfortable house with your pension money playing these stupid games. What kind of mother does this? The kind whose son told her to stop calling. The kind who finally woke up to being used. We never used you. Linda's voice was almost a shriek now. You gave us that money because you wanted to. We never forced you. I pulled out my phone and opened it to the screenshot of her text. The one where she admitted David wanted to cut me off years ago, but she convinced him to keep the relationship going. I showed it to them through the crack in the door. This says otherwise. This says you kept him in contact with me for the money. The color drained from Linda's face. David looked at her in shock, like he had not known she said that. You told them what? His voice cracked. For a moment, I saw a flash of something in David's eyes. Confusion. Maybe even hurt. But Linda grabbed his arm and yanked him back toward reality. She is manipulating you. This is exactly what she does. She twists everything to make herself the victim. I looked at my son. Really looked at him. And I saw something I had been refusing to see for years. He was weak. Not weak in the way that inspires compassion, but weak in the way that makes someone choose comfort over character. He had chosen Linda and easy money over integrity. Over me. You need to leave now, I said quietly. If you do not, I am calling the police. You would really do that? David's voice was almost a whisper. Call the cops on your own son. Linda exploded. Fine. Let her rot in this house alone. Come on, David. We are wasting our time with this crazy old. She used a word I will not repeat. But David was not moving. He was staring at me with something in his eyes I could not quite read. Regret maybe. Or just shock that his tactics were not working anymore. Mom, he said softly. Please. I'm scared. I do not know what to do. For a moment, just a moment, I felt that old pull. That maternal instinct to fix everything. To make it better. To save him from consequences. Then I remembered. 8 weeks of silence except when he needed money. 4 years of exploitation. That morning I called him sick and scared and he told me I was the problem. You figured out David. The same way I had to figure things out when your father left and I was raising you alone. The same way I figured out how to get to the hospital when you told me to deal with my own problems. You are an adult. Like one. Linda grabbed him again and this time he let himself be pulled away. They walked back to their car. Linda was yelling at him but I could not hear the words. David looked back once, his face pale and lost. Then they were gone. I closed the door and leaned against it. My legs were shaking now. Susan appeared beside me and wrapped her arms around me. You did it, she whispered. You actually did it. I had. But why did it feel like I had just jumped off a cliff with no idea if there was ground below or just endless falling? The next few days passed in a strange fog. I went to work. Came home. I cooked meals for one. I watched television without really seeing it. The silence in my house felt both terrifying and peaceful. The messages continued but they had changed tone. Less desperate. More threatening. You will regret this. You will be sorry when you are old and alone and have no one. We are going to tell everyone what kind of person you really are. This is elder abuse. We are going to report you. That last one made me call Patricia immediately. Can they actually do that? Can they report me for elder abuse? They can report anything they want, Patricia said calmly. But elder abuse is when someone exploits or harms an elderly person. You are the one who is being exploited. If anything, you could report them. In fact, I think we should document this threat. 2 days later, I got a call from Adult Protective Services. A woman named Karen Chan explained that they had received a report expressing concern about my welfare. My son had told them I was experiencing cognitive decline and making unsafe financial decisions. So this was their next move. If they could not guilt me or threaten me, they would try to have me declared incompetent. Ms. Chen, I said calmly, I can assure you I am completely competent. In fact, I believe this call is part of a harassment campaign from my son and daughter-in-law who have been financially exploiting me for years. There was a pause. Mrs. Chen, these are serious allegations. Would you be willing to meet with me in person so I can assess the situation? When would you like to come? We scheduled the meeting for the next day. Called Patricia immediately. She was furious but not surprised. This is a common tactic, she said grimly. If they can get you declared incompetent, David could potentially get power of attorney and access your finances. We need to be completely prepared. That night I gathered everything. Every bank statement, every text message, every piece of documentation showing the pattern. Medical records from my recent checkup showing I was in excellent health, both physically and mentally. Character references from Susan and other friends. My employment records showing I was still working successfully. When Karen Chan arrived the next morning, Patricia was already there. We sat at my kitchen table and I laid out everything. Not emotionally, not defensively, just factually. Here is what happened. Here is the evidence. Here is why I made the decisions I made. Karen asked careful questions. She examined the documents. She asked about my daily routine, my work, my health, my mental state. After an hour, she closed her notebook and looked at me directly. Mrs. Chen, I am going to be very clear with you. You are obviously of sound mind. You are articulate, organized, and have taken appropriate steps to protect yourself from what clearly appears to be financial exploitation. However, I am obligated to complete a full investigation. I will need to speak with your son as well. Understand, I said. I should warn you, this may escalate the situation. It has already escalated, Patricia said quietly. This is just the next phase. Karen left with promises to complete her report within 2 weeks. As soon as she was gone, Patricia turned to me. You did excellently. But Margaret, you need to prepare yourself. They have just been told by a social worker that their attempt to have you declared incompetent did not work. They are going to be angry. She was right. That evening, Linda called from David's phone. I did not answer, but the voicemail she left was vicious. She called me names I will not repeat. She said they were going to destroy my reputation. That everyone would know what kind of person I really was. That I would die alone and unloved, and it would be exactly what I deserved. I saved the voicemail and forwarded it to Patricia and to Karen Chen. This is exactly what we needed them to see, Patricia said when she called me back. This shows the harassment clearly. 2 days later, Karen called again. Mrs. Chen, I have completed my investigation. I am filing a report that finds no evidence of cognitive decline or need for intervention. However, I am also filing a separate report documenting what appears to be financial exploitation and harassment by your son and daughter-in-law. This will be forwarded to the appropriate authorities. Thank you, I whispered. Mrs. Chen, please be careful. They are very angry. The certified letter arrived on a Monday. It was addressed to David and Linda but sent to my house, probably because they had used my address for some official purpose and never updated it. The return address told me everything I needed to know. County eviction court. They had actually been evicted. Their threats about being homeless were not manipulation this time. They were real. I took a photo of the envelope without opening it and sent it to Patricia. Do not open it, she texted back. Return to sender. But the damage is already done. They are going to blame you for this, even though it is entirely their own choices catching up to them. That afternoon, David's car appeared in my driveway again. This time he was alone. No Linda. He looked even worse than before. like he had not showered or slept in days. His clothes were wrinkled and stained. His eyes had dark circles that made him look 10 years older. He knocked on my door. Not pounding this time. Just a gentle, almost hesitant knock. His voice was soft, broken. Please, I need to talk to you. Every instinct I had screamed at me to open that door. To let him in. Fix everything. But I had learned something over the past weeks. Instincts that had been trained by years of manipulation could not be trusted. I opened the door with the chain still on. David, if you are here to ask for money, the answer is no. I am not. His voice cracked. I swear I am not. I just need to talk to you. Please. 5 minutes. Against every piece of advice Patricia had given me, I unlocked the chain and let him in. But I did not invite him to sit. We stood in my entryway, an awkward distance between us. We got evicted, he said. His voice was hollow. We are living in the car now. Everything we own is in storage and we cannot afford to pay the fees, so we are going to lose it all. I lost my job because I missed too many days dealing with all of this. Linda is furious with me. She says this is all my fault for not being able to handle my own mother. I said nothing. Just waited. Mom, I know I messed up. I know I said terrible things. But I am drowning here. I do not know what to do anymore. I do not know how to fix any of this. Have you looked for help? I asked quietly. Social services. Shelters. There are resources for people in your situation. He looked at me like I had suggested something impossible. A shelter. Mom, I cannot go to a shelter. That is for homeless people. David, you are homeless. The words landed like a punch. He actually flinched. This is temporary. We just need to get back on our feet. If you could just lend us $5,000, we could get a new apartment and I could have time to find another job. And what happens in 6 months when you need another 5,000? Or a year from now when it is 10,000? Do you understand that over the past 4 years I have given you $48,000? His face went pale. That much. That much. And not once did you say thank you. Not once did you call just to check on me. Not once did you visit without needing something. The only time I asked you for help, when I was sick and scared, you told me I was the problem and to stop calling you. Tears started running down his face. No. I know I was awful. Mom, I am so sorry. I do not know what happened to me. It is like I just got lost somewhere and I do not know how to find my way back. Part of me wanted to comfort him. To hug him and tell him it would be okay. But I knew now that would be enabling. That would be teaching him that he could treat me however he wanted, and I would always cave eventually. David, I love you. I will always love you. But I cannot help you anymore. Not with money. Not by fixing your problems. You need to figure this out yourself. But I do not know how. His voice was desperate. I have never had to do this. You always helped me before. And that was my mistake. I did not teach you to stand on your own feet because I was always there to catch you. I thought I was being a good mother, but I was actually hurting you. And I cannot do it anymore. So you are just going to let me be homeless. Let me live in my car. What kind of mother does that? The kind who finally loves herself enough to stop being destroyed by her child. He stared at me for a long moment. Then something in his face hardened. Fine. You know what? Linda was right about you. You are selfish. You are cruel. And when you are old and dying and there is no one there for you, remember this moment. Remember that you chose yourself over your own son. I will, I said quietly. And I will be okay with that choice. He left then. No goodbye. No looking back. Just walked out my door and got into his beat-up car and drove away. I closed the door and slid down against it, my whole body shaking. Susan was supposed to come by that evening, but I called her and asked her to come early. I needed someone who understood. Someone who would not judge me for the decision I had just made. She arrived within 20 minutes with groceries and a determination to keep me from falling apart. You did the right thing, she said firmly as we unpacked food in my kitchen. I know it does not feel like it right now. But you did. He looks so broken, I whispered. Lost. Because he has never had to face consequences before. You always swept in and saved him. Now he is finally experiencing what the rest of us learned as children. that actions have results, that you cannot just take and expect people to keep giving. But he is my son. And you are a person, not an ATM machine, not a safety net. A person who deserves to be treated with respect and love, not just used when convenient. Cried that night. Deep, wrenching sobs that came from somewhere I did not know existed. Not for David really, but for the mother I had been. For the illusions I had held so tightly. For the version of reality I had believed in that had never actually existed. 3 weeks later, Patricia called with news that made my blood run cold. Margaret, David has been arrested. Fraud. Credit card fraud specifically. He and Linda had been opening credit cards in other people's names, including yours. Mine. My voice came out as a whisper. 3 cards. Total debt of $51,000. They had been making minimum payments using the money you gave them. But once that stopped, the cards defaulted and the investigation started. The good news is you are a victim here. You are not liable for the debt. The bad news is your son is facing serious criminal charges. I should have felt something. Horror. Grief. Maternal instinct to protect him. Instead I just felt numb. There is more, Patricia continued gently. Linda has been arrested too. She has a record. 2 previous convictions for similar schemes with previous partners. David was not her first victim. So my son had not just been a bad son. He had been a criminal. And the woman he married had been using him just like they had been using me. What happens now? They will both likely face prison time. David might get a reduced sentence if he cooperates and testifies against Linda. But Margaret, he is going to be out of your life for a while. I waited for the grief to hit. For the maternal instinct to kick in and make me want to save him one more time. It did not come. Thank you for everything, Patricia. You saved my life. No, she said softly. You saved yourself. I just helped with the paperwork. The trial happened 6 months later. I did not attend. Patricia represented me as a victim of their fraud, but I did not have to testify. The evidence was overwhelming. Bank records. Credit card applications with forged signatures. A paper trail that led directly to them. David got 4 years. Linda got 7 because of her previous convictions. I received 1 letter from David after the sentencing. It came from the county jail where he was being held before transfer to state prison. I do not expect you to forgive me. I do not expect you to write back. But I need you to know that I finally understand what you tried to tell me. About responsibility. About consequences. About standing on your own feet. Prison is terrible. But maybe I needed terrible to wake up. Linda filed for divorce the day after sentencing. She is trying to distance herself from me to get a reduced sentence. Did not work. I'm sorry for everything. For taking you for granted. For the cruel things I said. For stealing from you. For becoming someone I do not even recognize anymore. I do not expect anything from you when I get out. I just hope that maybe someday you can think of me without pain. I love you, Mom. I should have said it more when it mattered. Your son, David. I read the letter 3 times. Then I put it in a drawer with all the other documentation. Maybe someday I would respond. Maybe someday we would have some kind of relationship again. But that day was not today. Today I was still healing. Life after the trial settled into a new rhythm. A rhythm that was entirely my own for the first time in decades. I kept working at the hospital, but I cut back my hours. I had spent so many years doing overtime to send money to David. Now I worked a normal schedule and actually enjoyed my evenings. I joined a painting class at the community center. Turns out I had a talent for watercolors that I never knew existed. My instructor, a retired art teacher named Thomas, said I had a natural eye for color and composition. I started volunteering at the animal shelter on weekends. That is where I met Jasper, an elderly golden retriever who had been abandoned by his owners when they moved. He was 10 years old with gray around his muzzle and the sweetest brown eyes I had ever seen. The shelter said older dogs rarely get adopted. People want puppies. I took Jasper home that same day. Having him in my house changed everything. Suddenly I had a reason to take walks every morning and evening. Suddenly I had someone who was always happy to see me come home. Someone who needed me but in a healthy way. A way that felt good instead of draining. Susan became my closest friend during this time. We had coffee every Tuesday morning before work. She introduced me to her book club and I discovered I loved discussing novels with other people. For years I had read alone, never sharing my thoughts with anyone. The book club women became my circle. Helen, who had gone through something similar with her own daughter. Patricia, my lawyer, who also loved mystery novels. Robert from the hospital, who always had interesting perspectives. Sandra, who made everyone laugh with her dramatic readings of particularly bad dialogue. They celebrated my birthday with me. They checked on me when I was sick with the flu. They invited me to dinners and movies and day trips. They treated me like I mattered, not because of what I could give them but just because they enjoyed my company. 6 months after David went to prison, I did something I had been dreaming about for years. I booked a trip to Ireland. 2 weeks of exploring castles and countryside and coastal villages. Something I had always wanted to do but never could because there was always some crisis that needed funding. Susan came with me. We laughed until we cried at a pub in Galway. We got lost driving on the wrong side of the road. We stayed in a tiny bed and breakfast run by a woman named Bridget who made the best scones I had ever tasted. Standing on the cliffs of Moher with the wind whipping my hair and the ocean stretching endless before me, I felt something I had not felt in decades. Freedom. Pure, complete freedom. Susan took a photo of me in that moment. When I look at it now, I barely recognize myself. My face is lit up with joy. My arms are spread wide like I am embracing the whole world. I look alive in a way I had not been for years. I sent money to David's commissary account once a month. $50. Not because he deserved it. Not because I felt guilty. But because I was still his mother and I would not let anyone go hungry if I could help it. But that was where my involvement ended. No letters. No visits. No promises of help when he got out. Patricia had advised me to maintain clear boundaries and I listened. David wrote to me 3 more times over the first year. Each letter was similar. Apologetic. Reflective. Talking about therapy sessions in prison and things he was learning about himself. About how Linda had manipulated him but also how he had chosen to let himself be manipulated because it was easier than taking responsibility. I read each letter carefully. Then I put them in the drawer with the others. I was not ready to respond. Maybe I never would be. And I was learning to be okay with that. One evening about 18 months after the trial, I was sitting on my back porch with Jasper at my feet and a glass of wine in my hand. My garden was blooming. I had spent months transforming my neglected backyard into something beautiful. Roses and lavender and herbs. Tomato plants heavy with fruit. A small fountain I had installed myself with help from a YouTube tutorial. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost did not answer. But something made me pick up. Mrs. Chen. This is David. My heart jumped into my throat. He was not supposed to be out yet. He had another 2 years on his sentence. I got early release. Good behavior and completing some programs. I'm out. I am staying at a halfway house downtown. I said nothing. Just waited. I am not calling to ask for anything. Promise. I just wanted you to know I am out and that I am working on getting my life together. I have a job lined up at a warehouse. Nothing glamorous but it is honest work. I'm going therapy twice a week. I am trying to become someone you could be proud of again. My throat felt tight. David, I do not know what to say. You do not have to say anything. I just needed you to know that I heard you. Everything you said that day at your house. About standing on my own feet. About consequences. About becoming an adult. Heard it. And I am trying. Where is Linda? Still in prison. She has 4 more years. We are divorced. I will never speak to her again. Mom, she was poison. But I chose to drink it. That is on me. We talked for 20 minutes. Not about money. Not about the past really. Just about his plans. His job. His therapy. The halfway house rules. He told me about a group he had joined for people trying to rebuild their lives after prison. Before we hung up, he said something that surprised me. Mom, I do not expect us to have a relationship right away. Or maybe ever. I know I destroyed that. But I want you to know that the best thing you ever did for me was cutting me off. Saved my life. Even if it took prison to make me understand that. After we hung up, I sat on my porch for a long time. Jasper put his head on my lap like he knew I needed comfort. Did I feel forgiveness? Not yet. Maybe not ever completely. But I felt something shift. A tiny crack in the wall I had built around my heart where David was concerned. Susan came over the next morning and I told her about the call. How do you feel? She asked carefully. Anxious, but maybe a little hopeful too. Not hopeful that things will go back to how they were, but hopeful that maybe we can build something new. Something healthier. That is good, Susan said. Just remember, actions speak louder than words. Let him show you over time that he has really changed. Do not rush back into anything. I did not. Over the next 6 months, David called me once a month. Brief calls. Updates on his life. He never asked for money. Never asked to visit. Just checked in like he was slowly learning how to be a son without taking. On month 7, he asked if he could come by for coffee. Just an hour. At a coffee shop near my house, not at my home. Somewhere public and neutral. I agreed. Seeing him walk into that coffee shop was strange. He looked so different. He had gained some healthy weight. His hair was cut neatly. He wore clean clothes, simple jeans and a button-up shirt. But the biggest difference was in his eyes. The entitlement was gone. The expectation that I would fix everything. Instead, he looked humbled. Almost shy. We sat across from each other with our coffee cups between us like a fragile bridge. You look good, I said. Healthy. I feel better than I have in years. Working with my hands, having a routine, not constantly scrambling for money. It is strange, but I am happier now than I was when Linda and I had everything. We talked for exactly 1 hour like we had agreed. About his job. About my garden. About Jasper, who he was happy I had. About the book I was reading. Normal things. Parent and child things that did not revolve around crisis. When the hour was up, he stood and hesitated. Then he said something that made my eyes sting with tears. Thank you for meeting me. I know I do not deserve it. David, everyone deserves a chance to grow. I am just cautious about how much space I give you in my life. That is about protecting myself, not punishing you. Understand? And Mom, I'm going to keep showing up. Not asking for anything. Just being present. However long it takes. He left and I sat there with my coffee for another 20 minutes. Processing. Feeling. Wondering if maybe, just maybe, something could eventually be rebuilt from the ashes. 2 years passed. 2 years of monthly phone calls and quarterly coffee meetings. David never asked for money. Never showed up at my house unannounced. Never pushed for more than I was willing to give. He kept his warehouse job. Got promoted to supervisor. Started taking night classes at the community college. Continued therapy. Sent me a card on my birthday, not asking for anything, just acknowledging the day. Slowly, carefully, like tending a very fragile plant, we began to rebuild something. Not the old relationship. That was dead and needed to stay buried. But something new. Something based on respect instead of obligation. On boundaries instead of enmeshment. On mutual care instead of one-sided giving. I introduced him to Jasper on one of our coffee meetings. We met at a dog-friendly cafe, and David sat on the ground letting my elderly dog sniff him carefully. He is a good boy, David said softly, stroking Jasper's golden fur. You deserve to have someone who just loves you without complication. We all do, I said. On the 3rd anniversary of me hanging up on him that first time, David asked if he could take me to dinner. A real dinner at a nice restaurant. His treat. He had been saving up. Almost said no. Old fears rising up. Was this a setup? Would the other shoe drop? But Susan encouraged me to go. Let him do something for you. Let him practice being a giver instead of just a taker. You can always leave if it goes wrong. The dinner was lovely. We went to a small Italian place downtown. David was nervous, I could tell. He kept fidgeting with his napkin. But he was genuinely trying. Over pasta and wine. He told me about a woman he had started seeing. Someone from his recovery group. Her name was Rachel, and she was rebuilding her life too after some bad choices. They were taking things very slow. She knows everything about what I did. To you, to others. I did not hide anything. And she is still here. Feels different from Linda. Healthier. I am glad you found someone who knows the real you and cares anyway. He paid the bill without fanfare. Walked me to my car. Before I got in, he hugged me. Just a brief, gentle hug. The first physical contact we had had in over 3 years. Thank you for giving me another chance, he whispered. I know I do not deserve it. We all deserve chances to become better people. I am just glad you are taking yours seriously. Driving home that night, I realized something. I had forgiven him. Not in the way where everything was forgotten or erased. But in the way where I was no longer carrying the anger and hurt like stones in my pockets. I had set them down somewhere along the way and kept walking. For years after that first phone call where I told David I did not have a son, I invited him to my house for Thanksgiving. It was a small gathering. Susan and her daughter, Helen from book club, Patricia and her wife, Robert from the hospital, and David with Rachel. I was nervous. This was the first time David had been in my home since that awful day when he told me I was selfish and cruel. But I had worked hard in therapy myself to reach a place where I could do this without fear. David brought flowers. Real ones from a florist, not grocery store carnations. Rachel brought homemade pumpkin bread and a sweet, nervous smile. Throughout the dinner, I watched David interact with my friends. He was polite, helpful. He cleared dishes without being asked. He listened more than he talked. He made Rachel laugh with a gentle affection that seemed genuine. At one point, Susan caught my eye across the table and smiled. She knew what this meant. How far we had both come. After dinner, David asked if he could talk to me privately. We went out to my back porch, the same porch where I had sat so many evenings rebuilding my life. Mom, I need to tell you something. Rachel and I are getting married. Nothing big, just a simple courthouse ceremony. But I wanted you to know. And I wanted to ask if you would be there. My heart did a complicated dance. Oi, fear. Oh, caution. Are you sure about this? Marriage is hard, David. Especially when you are both working on yourselves. I'm sure. She makes me want to be better. She calls me out when I start slipping into old patterns. She loves me, but she does not let me get away with anything. And I love her the same way. And yes, I will be there. He hugged me again, this time longer. And I let myself hug him back. My son. Not the boy I raised. Not the man who hurt me. But someone new. Someone still becoming. The wedding was small and simple. Just family and close friends at the courthouse, followed by lunch at a nice restaurant. David wore a suit he bought himself. Rachel wore a simple cream-colored dress and smiled like the sun had come up just for her. I watched them exchange vows and felt something I had not expected. Not because everything was perfect. It was not. David still had work to do. We still had boundaries. I still protected myself. But I was no longer angry. No longer bitter. Just accepting of what was and cautiously hopeful about what might be. At the lunch afterward, David stood up to make a toast. His hand shook slightly as he held his glass. I want to thank everyone for being here today. Especially my mom. 4 years ago, I was the worst version of myself. I hurt the person who loved me most. I stole from her. I manipulated her. I told her terrible things that no son should ever say to his mother. The room went quiet. Rachel squeezed his hand. She did something that seemed cruel at the time but was actually the most loving thing anyone has ever done for me. She cut me off. She let me fall. And in falling, I finally had to learn to stand. Mom, you saved my life by refusing to keep enabling me. I will spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of another chance with you. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for not giving up on me completely even when I deserved it. He raised his glass. To second chances and the people brave enough to give them. Everyone drank. I wiped tears from my eyes. Susan grabbed my hand under the table and squeezed. Later, as I was leaving, Rachel pulled me aside. "Mrs. Chen, I just want you to know that I understand why you did what you did. David has told me everything. And I respect you for having the strength to set boundaries. I promise I will never let him take you for granted again. Just take care of each other," I said. "That is all I want." Now, 5 years after that first phone call, I sit in my garden on a Sunday afternoon. Jasper is asleep at my feet, old now but still my faithful companion. My flowers are blooming. My tomatoes are ripe. My life is full in ways I never imagined during those dark days when I thought losing my son meant losing everything. David and Rachel come for dinner once a month. We have game nights at my house, sometimes with Susan and Helen and other friends. David has met Robert, the man I have been seeing for the past year. They get along well, bonding over a shared love of old movies. I still send David birthday cards. He sends them to me too now, with notes that say "I love you, Mom, and thank you for everything." Simple words that mean the world. We are not the family we used to be. That family is gone, buried with the old patterns and the old pain. But we are becoming a new family. One built on honesty and boundaries and mutual respect. One where I do not sacrifice myself to save him. One where he stands on his own feet but knows I am there if he truly needs support. Is our relationship perfect? No. Do I still sometimes feel that old fear that he will revert to his old ways? Yes. But I also know now that I am strong enough to walk away again if I need to. I have proven it to myself. And that knowledge is power. My bank account is healthy. I have savings for the first time in years. I am planning a trip to Scotland next spring with Susan and Helen. I volunteer regularly at the shelter and have fostered 3 more dogs since Jasper, though I always end up adopting them. I am terrible at letting go. My life is my own. And it is good. Sometimes people ask me if I regret what I did. If I wish I had handled things differently. Kept helping David. Stayed enmeshed in his problems. The answer is no. Not for a single moment. I lost a son who was using me. But I found myself. And eventually, I gained back a son who learned to be a real adult. A real person. Someone I actually like spending time with. Not just someone I felt obligated to rescue. The women in my book club tell me I am brave. Patricia says I am one of her success stories. Someone who took control of their own life instead of being a victim. Susan says I inspire her. But I do not feel brave or inspiring. I just feel free. Free from the constant worry about the next crisis. Free from the weight of responsibility for another adult's choices. Free from the belief that being a good mother means destroying myself to save my child. I learned that you can love someone and still have boundaries. That you can be a mother without being a martyr. That sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let someone face their own consequences. I learned that family is not just about blood. It is about mutual care and respect. Susan has been more family to me these past years than David was for a long time. My book club friends have shown up for me in ways my son never did. I learned that it is never too late to choose yourself. At 61, I thought my life was set. That I would just keep giving and giving until there was nothing left. But I was wrong. I still had a whole life ahead of me. A life that was mine to shape. I learned that forgiveness is possible, but it does not mean forgetting. I have forgiven David for what he did. But I remember it. And I use that memory to protect myself. To maintain boundaries. To never go back to being that person who said yes to everything even when it hurt. Most importantly, I learned that I am worthy of love without sacrifice. That my value as a person is not determined by how much I give to others. That I deserve respect and care and relationships that fill me up instead of drain me dry. David learned some things too. He learned that actions have consequences. That you cannot take people for granted forever. That real relationships require mutual care. That being an adult means standing on your own feet. That his mother is a person, not just a resource. Are we close the way some mothers and sons are? Well, we probably never will be. Too much has happened. Too much trust was broken. But we have something real now. Something honest. And that is enough. I sit in my garden and I think about all of this. About the journey from that terrible Sunday morning when I was sick and scared and my son told me to deal with my own problems. Now, 5 years later, different, stronger, free. Jasper shifts in his sleep and puts his paw on my foot. I reach down and stroke his soft ears. The sun is warm on my face. My flowers smell sweet. Inside my house I have plans with friends later. Robert is taking me to a concert next weekend. Susan and I are planning our Scotland trip. Helen wants me to join her for her granddaughter's birthday party. My life is full. Not with chaos and crisis and constant giving, but with genuine connection and peace and joy. I did not abandon my son. I saved myself. And in doing so, I gave him the chance to save himself too. That is not cruelty. That is not selfishness. That is love. Real love. The kind that is strong enough to say no. The kind that sets boundaries. The kind that believes people can and should stand on their own feet. I am 66 years old now. I have gray in my hair and lines on my face. But I have never felt more alive. More myself. More at peace. If you are reading this, if you are listening to my story, and you see yourself in it, I want you to know something. You are not wrong for setting boundaries. You are not cruel for saying no. You are not a bad parent or child or friend or partner for choosing yourself. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is stop enabling. Stop sacrificing. Stop setting yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. It will be hard. It will hurt. People will call you selfish. They will tell you family is forever. They will make you doubt yourself. But on the other side of that pain is freedom. On the other side is a life that is truly yours. On the other side is peace. Found it. And you can too. My son texted me, "Stop calling. I am tired of you and your requests." 2 months later he called needing money and I told him I do not have a son. It was the hardest thing I ever did. And the best thing I ever did. For both of us. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helps someone out there find their courage. Find their voice. Find their freedom. You deserve a life that is yours. Do not be afraid to claim it. God bless you all.